You know, our core problem as Black people is that most of us cannot see that our minds are being systematically, perpetually manipulated to think in ways that serves and protects the system of white supremacy. Here's another case, point, and proof. When you critically think, can you not see just how cartoonishly unrealistic it actually is that virtually all information that we receive about ourselves from the white society are consistently negative and Black racially demoralizing? Think how cartoonishly unrealistic that is. Here's what's really going on. The white media's unrelenting negative depiction of Black people that amplifies the negative to the point that it distorts our reality is much more than just biased media reporting. It is actually an insidious Black racially demoralizing divide and rule psychological warfare campaign. Demoralized divide and rule is a method of maintaining control over a large targeted population through constant and unrelenting demoralization in order to create self-hatred and division between the targeted population. This propaganda campaign is deployed like a massive media marketing campaign that constantly subjects Black people to receiving only the fraudulent worst narratives about ourselves. Within this control system, fraudulent Black racially demoralizing propaganda is being pumped unrelentingly into the unsuspecting minds of the Black population, without being challenged or counterbalanced by an equal amount of Black positive racially affirming information. It conveys the subliminal message that Black people are now our own worst enemies and that we therefore need whites to govern over our lives. Moreover, that Black people should admire, respect, and trust only whites. This system is extremely effective because when Black people are repetitively presented these noted narratives from trusted white media sources, it can be very difficult to resist its implied propaganda programming, especially when the propaganda is being told daily and so unrelentingly. Its weapon is the demoralizing message that it carries and the way that it negatively impacts the Black population in terms of our behaviors. Keeping us believing the fraudulent worst about ourselves is how white oppressive forces now prevents us from unifying ourselves against them. People are easily controlled by the information that they repetitively receive about themselves, especially when they're unaware that the information has been distorted to invoke specific responses from them. When people are constantly fed negative information about themselves, they become demoralized, divided, and self-loathing. And they also become more compliant with their oppressor's dominance over their lives. In fact, many will even prefer it. It also creates a profound Black self-hatred and disunity, which attacks the core foundation of what bonds us as a people. And as long as we're kept within this condition, we can then be ruled over forever. And it doesn't matter that the information presented to us is untrue. Most people will respond accordingly to the information because they've all received the same false information. This nefarious psychological warfare tactic works by tapping into the immense power that shame has upon the human mind to mentally enslave millions of Black people. This is all possible because the white society writes all Black narratives and controls all Black mainstream media images. They therefore literally owns Black people's interpretation of our collective state. This is also possible because people are like computers. All you have to do is keep giving people certain information and media images every so often, and you can persuade an entire generation towards an implied objective. Some Black people have been so heavily demoralized by the white society's constant fraudulent negative depictions about our racial group that many literally finds it easier to continue believing the fraudulent worst about ourselves than to accept the truth that we're being lied to as a means of controlling us. Some black people have been so heavily demoralized by the white society's negative depictions of us that some tries to now separate themselves from the black population. This is a psychic adjustment that's called disidentification. This is where the painful embarrassment of being black is lessened by ceasing to identify with the black masses. These are those black people that often becomes what social scientists calls the members of the black buffer class. They're called the black buffer class because nowadays, before we can even confront the system of white supremacy, we often have to first fight against these black people that have been brainwashed to defend the system of white supremacy. They literally function as the buffer zone between the white establishment and the black masses. These are the ones among us that we most often call sellouts and black traitors, like Senator Tim Scott, or the media personality like Candace Owens or Jesse Lee Peterson, and many more. Those black people that insist that they confirm their negative assessments about our racial group based upon their own individual experiences are delusional, because it's not humanly possible to accurately assess the collective state of millions of people based on anyone's individual experiences. Those negative assessments about our group were embedded into our minds by the white society that writes all of our narratives, that controls our media images. They keep us believing the fraudulent worst about ourselves because it makes us easier to control. This is the truth of our plight and condition. The reason why many black people insist that they confirm their negative assessments about our racial group based upon their own individual experiences, although they've in fact not, is because once a false belief has been successfully embedded into the human mind, the person will then only notice those incidents that appears to confirm the false belief and will become psychologically blinded from noticing a greater amount of evidence refuting it. And then based upon this psychological blindness, they will insist that they've confirmed the negative assessments, although they've in fact not. This is the truth of our plight and condition, and it has nothing to do with a silly slave syndrome myth. Furthermore, this disclosure is totally consistent with history. Throughout history, those nations that were extremely oppressive did not abandon those proclivities very easily. They most often always reinvented them with much more sophistication. They've always developed methods of oppression that allows them to continue doing so, methods that are better suited with the changing times, methods that are not easily recognized by their victims. This is the hidden reality presently confronting black people. It's time to wake up to our reality. It is not a silly Willie Lynch myth. We're being oppressed through systems that the white society continually deploys against us. Wake up to our reality. One love and peace.